lot of the parts in Prototype 5 if you want to upgrade later. By the way, I'm also working on a couple other projects that I'm really excited to talk about soon.
So if you don't know, Lucas was a content creator who was making open source VR gloves. He was pretty popular for a while, but then he decided to focus on MIT. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and create a Prototype 6. Over the years, I have made Lucas VR's Prototypes 4 and 5 on my own, as well as a few forks of the project, but I never ended up quite finishing them. I did, however, find things to improve, so let's go over my project goals. First off, most DIY gloves have something that presses against the back of your fingers. This is uncomfortable, and I feel overstimulated by it. Nextly, the gloves must not pull on your fingers. A lot of gloves like to use string to measure finger position, and it's cheap and easy-ish to make, I assume. However, I just find that it pulls back on my fingertips and hurts my joints. Thirdly, they must be well balanced without sacrificing much movement. Also, they must be easy to take on and off because I want to use these as my main device. Lastly, I would like for splay detection, and my main goal is, if I can communicate through sign language, this is a great project. I want to clarify that although a lot of VR gloves don't follow these goals of mine, they are still amazing pieces of hardware and have set the groundwork for VR gloves to come. And they have reached out through the years of shifting internet algorithms to inspire me to blow them out of the water with my own objectively perfect design. That's stupid, but I'm gonna keep it for now. Let's get some inspiration. Lucid VR's Prototype 4. It's great for goal 3, but doesn't satisfy any of my others. Prototype 5, however, is perfect except for 1 and 4. The Indexer is a very ambitious project. It looks like the most promising one I've seen, but when I tried to make it, it didn't fit my hand all that well. I don't know if I did something wrong, but I think I can do better in the ways I want. I would definitely check it out, though. And then I found it. The holy grail of VR gloves. The Messiah. Something so perfect that if it's finished, it would invalidate this whole video because I couldn't possibly improve something so glamorous. The Exoskeleton VR Glove by NNN Ghost. Wait. This video was how long ago? And that's his last? Wow. Well, maybe he's on TikTok, and that's where he's been making videos, like Lucas VR did. Oh. Well, I guess that means development is up for grabs! So actually, I saw this design with the Sense Glove like 5 years ago, and have been toying with the idea of making a DIY version of it for forever. But then I found this when I figured someone probably already made a DIY version of this and started looking. So let's look at my design so far. Yeah, I tried this a few times last year, and this was kind of the best I could make. So let's try again. First off, I'm going to make a Proto Glove by Valve's Virtuals. It's a VR glove with no electronics on it. It's just meant to help have a base for you to build your own prototype off of, and this has made it so much easier to design. Next, I'm actually going to take the splay feature from Valve's Virtuals Indexer for now, while I get the basics working. Eventually, I want to make this whole glove gloveless, so it's just an exoskeleton sitting on top of your hand. This will help for breathability, and probably for manufacturing. So all of this will be reworked later. Now let's get to the actual exo fingers. If I just curled them around my hand to meet the tips of my fingers, it would bend into my fingers. I'd have solved this primarily through 2 methods. 1, connect the ends of the exo fingers to the middle segment of each finger, and 2, extend the anchor point beyond the second joint. I've seen this design before, primarily on non-force feedbacked gloveless designs. Now, connecting the gloves to the middle segment might cause some issues with force feedback, and this is where the glove comes in. The exo finger would pull on the glove, and the glove would pull on the tips of the finger. In theory, at least. We'll see if that's actually what happens later. Now, after printing and reprinting over and over again, I eventually got a good glove shape that curls nicely around my fingers and splays well. Next, I actually made the splay linkage from the Indexer a bit longer so the pivot point was directly over my finger. Now, after a lot of wiring, it's finally time to... So I'll just reuse the OpenGloves firmware, as that really seems to be the only option for DIY gloves right now, and... the gloves don't support splay. So there's this fork of the firmware by Alexia that supports Splay, and it is unstable, and Splay is also broken. That is unfortunate as well. Okay, so I'll go back to Lucas's firmware and forget Splay for now and implement it later. And Bluetooth is not working. Okay. So I managed to connect somehow. Don't ask me how, I don't know. And the next part comes... connecting to the convenient, amazing OpenGloves driver on Steam. It's made by Lucas, may he rest in peace, and it basically runs the gloves. And I've connected to it before with a bare board, so I know it works, and it doesn't seem to recognize my glove. Okay. Oh, so it just doesn't work on the Steam VR 2.0 update. That's irritating, but I guess I'll downgrade and... Okay, so this bit is getting long, so I'll just cut to the chase. Something broke when Steam got the UI UX overhaul for Steam 2.0, and that broke a lot of things. It does seem that Lucas had handed over development to another developer, but they abandoned it too, about a year later. So there is a beta version that works sometimes, but only through Bluetooth, and only when the moon is in retrograde after several band-aid fixes. I eventually got into the demo and got this, which has a few problems, and it crashed a few minutes later, never to be resurrected again. So I guess let's make our own drivers in firmware. Oh boy, it's time for another list! Okay, so I'm making my own drivers. I might as well make a few more features, so here's what I want. 1, I want a nice UI that lets me see what the gloves are doing and control the settings in real time. 2, I want to minimize the amount of C++ code because I haven't done too much of it before, so I'll be running most of the logic through my UI drivers. And lastly, I want to eliminate rolling calibration. What does that mean?
Well, when you press the OpenGloves calibration button, it resets the calibration every time you move the fingers, so it creates a low value updates those ranges with those minimum maximums.
Sorry, here, With OpenGloves, when you press the button, the glove resets its calibration, and every time you move your fingers further than before, it always thinks that's a new range of motion. This sounds great on paper. It automates your calibration to as few steps as possible. Press the button and play. But the problem appears when you hyperextend your fingers. This sounds like a silly problem, but you accidentally do this every time you let go of a large object. So now, when you drop an object, your hand is suddenly further closed than it really is. Now, I made my firmware so that it only calibrates while you hold the button. And if you hyperextend your fingers, which Steam doesn't track anyway, and go past the calibrated range, it just goes to the max value. I also did this for Splay. No real reason why, though maybe I should have rolling calibration for that. I'm too lazy, I guess. So back to reinventing the wheel. For the UI, it looks like this. But I didn't like it, so I remade it from scratch, and now it looks like this. Look at all those features, and most of them work. I made this whole UI using Python and PyQt. I love Python so much. It's so nice and easy, and I'm sure that the C++ driver will only be a little harder. So what's the worst that can happen, especially since all the logic is done through the gloves and UI, and all Steam has to do is take the values and throw them into Steam after emulating the controller, right? What an innocent little bird I was. I have come to find out that C++ should be considered on the same level as quantum physics or something, because my tiny bird brain understands it less than that. I have literally spent 80% of my waking hours just working on this for the last 4 days now, but they're blending together, so I don't know, and now I'm giving up. I'd like to pump the data through to OpenGloves as a workaround, but turning on named pipes, which is essential for this, literally bricks Steam VR, so I can't do that. But the JSON output is working perfectly. The firmware setup, UI, and everything done so far has progressed much further along than I thought I would be able to. Nothing crashes, the firmware uploads without a problem, connecting to Bluetooth is seamless. The project looked so promising, and I'm not done trying yet. But I reach out to all of you. I need help with the C++ drivers, as it is far outside of my range of expertise as an electrical engineering major. We're so close to what is, for my preferences at least, a perfect DIY VR glove that costs less than 8 Big Macs to make. But until I get some help, I'm not going to stop working on this. I'm going to continue trying to learn C++. I'm going to further refine my UI, I'm going to get force feedback support ready, and I'm going to refine my VR hardware. Thank you for watching, check back in later, and I enjoyed your company so much. Goodbye.